Jason wasn't sure if being bought at an intergalactic auction was a good thing. To be honest, he didn't know what he expected when he raised his hand at the exotic species auction on the dusty backwater planet. But what he definitely didn't expect was to end up in the possession of a super-rich alien heiress who thought he was some sort of luxury pet. Lot 69. The auctioneer had announced, his voice booming across the crowded room. Human, male, house-trained, mostly. Requires minimal care, does not bite unless provoked. Jason felt his jaw tighten. Yeah, and if you press the wrong button, I'll hack your systems and sell your entire planet for scrap. The alien aristocrats around him clapped, laughing at his dry humor. He wasn't sure if they were laughing with him or at him, but it didn't matter. He was just trying to survive, and the way things were going, that meant playing along with the act. Sold! The auctioneer's voice rang out, and Jason's eyes narrowed as Lady Zelthira of House Vorthen walked toward him. She was tall, even by alien standards, with skin the color of crushed emeralds. Her eyes, two glowing orbs of violet, stared at him with a mix of disdain and curiosity. You're mine now, she declared. Jason gave her a sarcastic smile. Yeah, sure, whatever. Just so you know, I don't come with a manual. Zelthira didn't seem fazed. You will do as I command. I have certain expectations. Her voice was cold, imperious. Jason didn't give a damn about her expectations. I've got 2 words for you, maintenance free. He looked her up and down. And, by the way, do you come with a return policy? She smirked, clearly amused. You'll find I'm not easily impressed, human. You will serve me, and your existence will improve dramatically. Improvement sounds great, but only if I get some internet access and a working coffee maker. Zelthira waved her hand dismissively, signaling for 2 of her attendants to escort him to her estate. The air in her palace was thick with luxury, the sort of wealth that had no regard for practicality. The walls were lined with glowing crystal panels, the floors made of some material that Jason swore had been imported from a dying star. At least the palace was kind of cool. He could live with that. The servants were another matter. Zelthira's alien butler, a 6-armed octopus-like creature, scurried around with extreme efficiency, clearly designed for this kind of environment. Jason, on the other hand, was a blue-collar mechanic who had seen more broken-down spaceships than he cared to count. Hey! Jason called out to the butler as he passed. You mind if I take a look at the AI system? It's kind of glitching. The butler made a noise that sounded like a series of beeps. Jason took that as a no but didn't care. He slid his toolkit out of his backpack and walked toward the central control console of the palace's AI system. I'm sure it's just a power surge issue, Jason muttered to himself. Just need to reroute the energy flow. Let's see if I can fix this without blowing everything up. Zelthira watched him with an expression of surprise, her arms folded as he worked. I didn't expect you to be competent. Jason shot her a grin. I'm not just a pretty face. Give me a minute, and I'll have this thing purring like a, well, I guess your planet doesn't have cats, but you get the idea. With a few quick adjustments, the palace's AI system came back online, humming smoothly as if nothing had ever gone wrong. Jason leaned back, wiping his hands off on his jumpsuit. Told you. Zelthira raised an eyebrow. Impressive, for a human. Jason raised his own brow, smirking. I've got a lot more tricks up my sleeve than just fixing your malfunctioning AI. She didn't respond immediately, though the way she eyed him made Jason suspect that this was going to be more than just a job. It was a game. And Jason didn't like losing games. Later that evening, after a dinner that consisted mostly of foods he couldn't pronounce, Zelthira walked him through her servant quarters, which was, by the looks of it, a small palace wing. She made it clear that he was expected to obey her every whim. What is it that you want, exactly? Jason asked, trying to get a better sense of what he'd gotten himself into. She crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. You will assist with various duties around the palace. You will maintain the estate, serve me, and if you are lucky, perhaps you will even enjoy some pleasure duties. Jason raised an eyebrow. Pleasure duties? Oh, I'm in the wrong line of work. Thought I was hired as a handyman, not a wait, what did you just say? Zelthira gave him a coy smile. There are many ways to serve, human. Some of them require a more personal touch. Jason stood there for a moment, trying to figure out what was happening. Are you serious? I'm fixing your palace and now you're offering me personal service? Only if you prove useful, she replied, her voice cold but strangely inviting. I have needs. Jason bit back a laugh. Well, lucky for you, I'm great at meeting strange demands. She smirked. Then get to work. And just like that, Jason found himself in the most bizarre job of his life. He was expected to be an all-purpose handyman, and somewhere along the way, things started getting complicated. It was already becoming clear. Zelthira was used to having everything go according to plan, but Jason was quickly proving that sometimes, plans just needed a little bit of rewiring, literally. But Jason was used to this. His whole life had been nothing but fixing things that no one else could, whether it was a broken-down spaceship or an overambitious alien heiress. He didn't think he was in trouble just yet. He was pretty sure he had this, whatever this was, under control. The days started blurring together. Jason was a slave to his own competence, fixing everything in the palace with the ease of someone who had dealt with broken-down tech and half-baked plans his whole life. Zelthira, for all her grandiosity and regal posture, had no clue how to maintain her own empire. He was starting to suspect she could barely manage her own hair. After reprogramming half of her household staff's neural interfaces and cleaning out her faulty pleasure bot, Jason decided it was time to deal with the bigger issue, Zelthira herself. Every day she would give him more orders, insignificant stuff, really, like adjusting the humidity in her chambers, reorganizing her antique weapon collection, which he made sure to swap out with a few human classics like a lawnmower and an electric drill, or arranging her luxury tapestries just so. She'd act like she was in control, but it was becoming clearer that she wasn't quite sure what she was doing. When she told him to install a new biodampening system in her personal quarters, Jason sighed and rubbed his temples. You know, you're really killing me with all these unnecessary upgrades. You ever think about just getting a minder? Like one of those robotic things that doesn't ask questions or challenge your perfect orders. She glared at him, her arms folded across her chest. You're a servant human, not a consultant. You're here to serve, not talk back. Jason rolled his eyes. Listen, lady, I didn't sign up for service. You bought me like I was a damn pet, and now I'm fixing your whole damn estate. Pretty sure I'm doing a lot more than serving around here. Zelthira's face hardened. You'll regret your insolence. I am heir to House Vorthen and I… Yeah, Jason interrupted. Big title, lots of pressure. But last time I checked, your house doesn't know how to handle its plumbing. He didn't care to see the fire in her eyes. And that, my dear, is why you need me. She clenched her fists. I don't need you. I simply allow you to exist. Sure, keep telling yourself that. Jason smirked. Hey, speaking of existence, you ever consider how I'm doing? Because I've got to say, living with someone who acts like she owns everything, including me, isn't as fun as you might think. There was a moment of tension, thick and awkward, before she took a step back. Her posture softened, and her voice was quieter when she spoke again. I don't know why I feel this way. I should hate you for being so insubordinate, but I can't. It's like something's pulling me toward you. Jason crossed his arms, eyeing her with mild curiosity. Yeah, well, you're starting to realize that having a human around isn't all about submission. We're not exactly the obedient pet type. But we're adaptable. He grinned. And we're good at turning situations around. How do you think I fixed your security systems in a day? Zelthira blinked, clearly trying to process what he was implying. You think I need you to fix my systems? I think you need me for a lot more than fixing wires. Jason's grin widened. I mean, I'd be happy to help you with some personal issues too, you know, if you're not too proud to ask. Her eyes narrowed. I don't need your help. You don't need my help? Then why do you keep asking me to stay around? Jason raised an eyebrow. You ever notice you don't sleep as well unless I'm in the room? I've seen you pacing around, getting all twitchy if I'm not nearby. Your biological functions are acting up. Guess what? You've got a human problem. She shook her head, her gaze hardening again, but it was clear she was trying to keep the conversation in her favor. You're lying. Am I? Jason leaned in closer. Okay, what about your pleasure bot? You didn't just buy me for a handy set of tools, did you? Zelthira shifted uncomfortably. That is none of your concern. Jason gave a short laugh. Well, considering I've fixed it to serve me, I'd say it's definitely my concern now. You really want to have a conversation about your needs? Fine, let's talk about it. But the truth is, you're the one who's starting to need me. She inhaled sharply, her violet eyes flashing with something between frustration and curiosity. But before she could respond, he turned away, walking casually toward a nearby control panel. Oh, and by the way, you've got a short in your energy core. I'll fix it tomorrow. Zelthira stood there for a moment, staring after him, her mind clearly whirling with all sorts of conflicting emotions. Jason didn't care. He wasn't about to apologize for putting her in her place, but there was something undeniably satisfying about seeing her rattled. She was used to being in control, but Jason wasn't about to let her forget that humans weren't the submissive creatures they'd assumed. And honestly, there was a part of him that liked seeing her squirm. Not because he wanted to hurt her, he was smarter than that, but because he could see the shift. She was starting to need him. And it was only a matter of time before she admitted it. Over the next few days, he played his cards carefully. Jason wasn't a fool. He knew how to turn things to his advantage. He used his skills to fix everything from her malfunctioning kitchen systems to her faulty communication consoles. He made sure to show off how much better he was at all of this than her so-called elite servants. Yet, something was happening that Jason didn't expect. Zelthira began to watch him more closely. She started asking questions, not about repairs, but about Earth, about humans, about his past. She even stopped commanding him quite so harshly. Instead, she would occasionally ask him for suggestions, sometimes even looking at him with a strange mix of admiration and desire. And that was where the fun really began. Because Jason wasn't just fixing her palace, he was fixing her mindset. It wasn't long before she was asking him to stay after his work hours, watching him with eyes that weren't filled with orders but with something far more dangerous. Curiosity. Jason smirked to himself. If she thought she had him figured out, she was about to learn a very human lesson. And that lesson was never underestimate a mechanic who has a way with tools, and a way with words. Jason had always been the kind of guy who could read people. And right now, he could read Zelthira like an open book. The way she watched him now, it wasn't the cold, detached gaze of a master observing her property. No, there was something else behind those violet eyes. Something deeper. She'd been asking questions. And not just the, "How do I fix this?" kind. She was asking about Earth, about humanity, about what made him tick. Jason didn't mind. It was interesting. The longer he stayed here, the more he realized how much she had underestimated him. She was the heir to an entire empire, yet when it came to basic human interaction, she was completely out of her depth. All the money, all the power, and it didn't mean a damn thing when she couldn't even make small talk without coming across as patronizing. One evening, after fixing yet another series of system failures, because apparently her entire estate had been built on a foundation of bad decisions, Jason found himself sitting in the main lounge of the palace, sipping some kind of alien liquor that tasted like gasoline mixed with bubblegum. Zelthira joined him soon after, wearing an unusually relaxed expression. She didn't carry herself like she usually did, like she was the queen of the universe. "You know," Jason said, taking a sip and grimacing, "I'm starting to think I should get hazard pay for this." Zelthira raised an eyebrow. "Hazard pay?" "Yeah. I mean, fixing all your problems isn't exactly easy. I'm surprised you haven't realized that I'm doing all the heavy lifting here." She shifted in her seat, clearly trying to figure out how to respond. Her usual retorts about human inferiority were missing, and Jason noticed it. She seemed to be considering him in a different way now. She didn't know what to make of him, and that was the fun part. Jason wasn't a dumb guy. He knew exactly what was happening. She finally spoke. "You've been quite useful." Jason snorted. "You mean useful like your palace AI, which, let's be honest, was about as competent as a dead rat at a space station party? Or you mean useful like your pleasure bot that needed more reprogramming than I'm comfortable with?" Zelthira shot him an irritated look, but there was a hint of something else in her eyes, something softer. "I didn't expect you to be so competent." "Well, you thought you bought a human pet, didn't you?" "Newsflash, lady, we're not just here for your amusement. We can fix things. And just a heads up, we're good at getting what we want, too." Her lips tightened into a thin line. "I never asked for your opinion on what I expected." "I know," Jason said, leaning back in his chair. "But you seem to be asking for my opinion more than you think. You're asking about humans, about how we think, how we work. You're curious." Zelthira's eyes narrowed. "Curious? About you?" Jason grinned. "Yeah. You're curious about me. About why I can walk in here and dismantle your entire infrastructure and still come out looking like a guy who just got back from a vacation. You're trying to figure out why I'm different. Why I don't fall into line like every other subjugated species you've had around. And let me tell you, Zelthira, it's not because I'm your pet." He paused, giving her a knowing look. "It's because I'm human. And you can't predict us." There was a long silence between them, thick with unspoken words. Jason wasn't stupid. He could tell the shift was coming. It was subtle at first. The way she looked at him, how she lingered on his words. The fact that she didn't get angry the way she used to when he made sarcastic comments. No, now she was just listening. She broke the silence, her voice quieter now. "I don't need you to tell me about humanity. I know how humans work. I've had enough contact with your kind to know your habits." Jason raised an eyebrow. "Oh, really? Then why do you keep asking questions about me? About Earth? About how I think?" Zelthira's eyes flashed. "I was simply trying to understand your behavior." Jason smirked. "Sure, whatever you say, princess. But here's the thing, you're starting to see it. You're starting to get that I'm not just here to serve you. And that's messing with your head." Her gaze shifted away, a flash of discomfort crossing her features. "You're wrong." Jason leaned forward, dropping the smirk. "Am I? You're getting attached, Zelthira. The more you try to push me into that obedient servant box, the more you realize I don't fit. You can't control me. You want to, but you can't. And it's driving you nuts. I don't need you," she snapped, but her voice lacked its usual conviction. Jason shrugged. "Doesn't matter if you need me or not. You want me. And that's the problem. You want me, but you're too proud to admit it. You can't figure out why you're thinking about me more than you should be. But let me save you the trouble. It's because I'm human. We have a way of getting under your skin. Whether you like it or not." Zelthira looked at him for a long moment, her chest rising and falling with uneven breaths. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She was trying to maintain that icy exterior, but Jason saw through it. He saw the cracks. She was unraveling. And he wasn't about to stop it. "You know," Jason continued, his voice low, "I've been around the galaxy, fixed up countless messes. But I've never met someone like you. Someone so determined to control everything around them. Someone so desperate to believe they have everything figured out. You don't. You don't have anything figured out." "I do," she shot back, her tone rising. "I am the heiress to House Vorthen. I am." Yeah, Jason cut her off, holding up his hand. "You're an heiress. You own a planet. But you don't own me. And you don't even own your own emotions. And trust me, lady, that is the only thing that's actually in control here." There was a long pause. Her eyes narrowed, her fists clenched, But Jason wasn't backing down. This wasn't just about fixing her palace anymore. This was about fixing her, about making her see that all the power she thought she had didn't matter if she couldn't even figure out the one human who was constantly making her question everything. She stood abruptly, turning her back to him. I don't have to listen to this. No, you don't, Jason replied, standing up too. But you are listening. And the longer you do, the more you're going to realize that you're not the one in control anymore. Zelthira didn't turn around. But Jason could see the way her shoulders sagged. The way she was finally starting to understand. She'd come into this thinking she could own him. But in the end, it wasn't about ownership. It was about influence. And Jason had far more influence over her than she could ever have imagined. Zelthira's grip on her composure was starting to slip. Jason could see it in the way her posture shifted, in the way her sharp gaze softened just a bit whenever their eyes met. The arrogance, the superiority, everything she used to hold on to like a shield, was slowly cracking. It wasn't all at once. It was a slow burn. She wasn't ready to admit it yet, but she was starting to realize the truth. Humans weren't as simple as she thought. The more Jason played it cool, the more it got under her skin. And Jason wasn't about to back down. He had her figured out. The heiress who thought she had it all, control, wealth, power, was about to learn that sometimes, the thing you think you can control is the one that controls you. He didn't have to say much. He let the silence between them speak louder than any words could. Every time she gave him an order, it came with a catch. He'd fix something in her palace, sure. But he'd also throw in a sarcastic remark, or a reminder that she was the one who kept calling on him, the one who needed him. And it worked. Slowly, but surely, Zelthira's icy exterior was beginning to melt. She wasn't the kind of person who asked for help. Ever. Yet here she was, repeatedly coming to him with more personal questions. Sometimes about Earth, sometimes about his life, sometimes just wondering. She had started sitting with him after his work, her posture slightly more relaxed, though still maintaining that air of superiority. One evening, as Jason was fiddling with her palace's central heating system, she walked up behind him, her presence hovering just out of reach, but close enough for him to sense her hesitation. She didn't say anything right away, but Jason knew she had something on her mind. He didn't stop working, just continued adjusting the system's settings while she stood there, watching him. So, what now? She asked finally, her voice softer than usual. Jason glanced up, still not stopping what he was doing. Now I finish fixing your empire's never-ending list of issues. But honestly, I've been wondering the same thing. She tilted her head, almost like she didn't understand. What do you mean? I mean, you bought me, right? You wanted a human for reasons, but you're still figuring out what to do with me. Well, you've already learned that I'm not just some maintenance worker. I'm more than that. He paused and looked her in the eye. I'm not your pet. I'm not your servant. I'm your biggest problem. Her eyes narrowed, but there was something in her expression that Jason hadn't seen before. It wasn't anger, not exactly. More like frustration. Not at him, but at herself. What do you want from me, human? She asked, her tone quieter now, like she was finally lowering her defenses. Jason finished adjusting the heat controls, stepping back from the panel. I don't want anything from you. But you? You want something from me. And the longer this goes on, the more you start to realize that you're the one who needs me more than you're willing to admit. Zelthira opened her mouth to speak, but the words didn't come. She just stared at him, her thoughts racing behind those violet eyes. I don't need you, she said again, but this time it sounded less convincing, like she was trying to convince herself more than Jason. You're just a human. You're nothing. Jason crossed his arms, a smirk pulling at the corner of his lips. That's the thing about humans, Zelthira. We might be nothing to you, but that's where you're wrong. We're everything. We're adaptable. We're resilient. And we've survived everything the universe could throw at us. We don't need to be perfect to be powerful. You think you're powerful? She said, her tone a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Not powerful in the way you think. But yeah, I'm powerful. In my own way. And maybe that's the problem. You can't control me the way you control everyone else. You can't even control your own emotions anymore. Zelthira's expression shifted. It was subtle, so subtle that Jason almost missed it, but it was there. Her eyes flickered with something between recognition and resignation. She looked away for a moment, a slight tremor running through her. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jason's smirk faded into something more serious. "Why am I doing this? I don't know. Maybe it's because I enjoy proving people wrong. Maybe it's because I can't stand to see someone so in control of everything fall apart because they don't know how to deal with their own feelings. You think I'm falling apart?" Her voice was almost a challenge now, but the edge was gone. Jason stepped closer to her, letting the distance between them close for the first time. "No. You're not falling apart. But you're starting to question everything. You're not the cold, calculating heiress you think you are anymore. You're starting to realize that the more you try to control me, the more you can't control yourself." Zelthira looked like she was about to say something, but the words stuck in her throat. She wasn't used to this. She wasn't used to not having control. She had been trained her whole life to rule, to dominate, to be the one everyone else bowed to. And yet here she was, standing in front of a human who had, in just a short time, made her question everything she knew about power. She shook her head, looking frustrated. "I don't need you to do this." Jason gave her a crooked grin. "You don't? Then why do you keep coming back to me? Why do you keep asking about Earth? About me? You think you've got this all figured out? No, Zelthira. You're starting to figure it out. And it's driving you crazy." She turned away, pacing for a moment, clearly fighting an internal battle. "You're wrong," she muttered under her breath. Jason chuckled softly. "Yeah, sure. Whatever you need to tell yourself." For the first time, he saw her hesitate. Saw the wall she'd built around herself start to crack. The realization was dawning on her. And it wasn't just that she had come to depend on him for fixing her estate or her systems. No, it was more personal than that. It was deeper. She had started to depend on him in ways she wasn't ready to admit. "You're messing with my head," she said, finally turning to face him, her voice trembling just slightly. Jason smiled, but this time it wasn't mocking. It was genuine. "Yeah, I am. But you're the one letting me. So you tell me, Zelthira. Who's really in control now?" There was a long pause, and in that silence, Jason knew something had shifted. They were no longer playing the same game. She was no longer the one who owned him. She was the one who was starting to need him. And in that moment, he realized, it wasn't about ownership. It was about influence. And Zelthira was learning that the hard way.